being obsessed with running, being completely fascinated by the outliers, by people who daily challenge themselves, who grind on a daily basis, who continuously stretch the borders of their limits. I am happy to announce that I've had a fantastic conversation with Pato. He's a runner. He grinds on a daily basis. I'm completely mind blown by his running results, by his discipline, by the fact that he barely ever misses a day. We talked obviously about everything running related, about his challenges. We talked a little bit about the philosophical aspect of running. We talked about his introduction to David Goggins. We talked also about his unbelievable meeting with Cameron Hanes and plenty more. So please welcome my guest today, Pato. I prefer to record right after everybody's joined because I don't want to miss those first, precious seconds and, of introductions. So first of all, thanks a lot for agreeing that. I do understand that when a no-name reaches out to you, that's a bit of you've got to take it by faith, right? Because obviously it's not some sort of a big podcaster that reaches out to you. So thanks a lot for doing that. We're going to talk about running mainly, about running, everything that's running related. I must confess, I've been following you for probably I think it'd be fair to say around 2 years probably. And your page has been quite, empowering, I can say. So let's talk a little bit about how the story started. So take me back to where you first started running, if you don't mind. How did it all start? I would not be surprised at all if they all started thanks to our guy David,
Yeah, so basically one day I was just watching a podcast with a friend and he wasn't into it. And then on the side they had suggestions and there was a David Goggins one, Logan, and he was like, just play that one, man. And I was like, all right, whatever. So I had no idea who David Goggins was. And obviously as he was sharing a story, it sounded like.
So that was his Goggins appearance. Must have been his first appearance on Rogan, sorry, right?
Yeah, it was the first one. And then his story was inspiring. And that same night, I was like, man, I gotta do something, because I was going through some stuff like we all do. And I just felt like I had a lot more to give in the tank, and I resonated to his story. So,
which was how long ago? How many years ago was that?
I remember my first run was November 7th, 2019. I remember
2019.
Perfectly.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, you memorized that, right? That's a remarkable date for you.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, nice. So what do you think that is about David? Because I think it would be fair to admit that there are plenty of guys similar to him, not quite like him, but there are plenty of guys, because you see this inspirational, motivational YouTube is filled with people like that. So what was it about David particularly that got you think?
It wasn't so much like the physical part of it.
Yeah.
When he spoke about how it changed his life mentally and how he was able, he spoke about running an ultra marathon. And before listening to the story, I knew what a marathon was, and but I was never interested, or I didn't really care for it. But when he said that, he said something along the lines of he lived 80 years in a 24-hour period. I was like, man, that's powerful coming from a guy who's done a lot of other things.
Yep. So that got you, right? And that was probably, I imagine, a certain bit of curiosity. Were you just curious to test yourself and to know what it must have felt like?
Yeah. I mean, his story seemed fake to me because,
really?
I mean, he has a lot of accomplishments, but the fact that he brought up the hardest thing was like his first 100-mile race. I was like, man, I just need to start running and see what this is about. And that same night, picked up a pair of shoes.
Oh, really? That same night? And so what was the distance that same night? How fit were you at that point?
I was a few pounds overweight. I wouldn't say I was not obese, that's for sure.
Not like David when he started.
Yeah, I wasn't David. I was just average. I wasn't running. I would go to the gym a couple times a week. I was just average, a little bit overweight.
Yeah. So when you went on the first run, how many miles, kilometers did you get in?
It was a little bit. I think it was like 5.5 or like
Yeah.
right under 6 miles.
Uh-huh.
And man, I was like so inspired because I just wanted to make changes in my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because again, I was just average across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted a big change, and I was tired of not tapping into my potential. So that
It,
run was very tough. Very,
really.
very tough.
It's interesting how a lot of people, I feel like they don't really even know that there's this yearning in them, this hunger, this desire to challenge themselves up until the moment when somebody sort of breaks their reality. There must be some kind of a crazy dude who you bump into on YouTube or perhaps in real life. Although I would imagine we are not that privileged to have some animals around us, real crazy, savages around. What about your surrounding? Do you have some people in your sort of vicinity who would share the same mindset with you?
Yeah, I know people that share the same mindset, maybe in different fields. I don't, I kind of like to do my own thing, and
Yeah.
it's hard to talk about certain things with certain people, but I try to surround myself around people who are passionate in what they do, and it doesn't have to be physical, and it doesn't have to be running. It could be somebody who's really smart, or I'm around a lot of athletes just because I gravitate towards
Oh, really?
athletics.
Like
But
literally
um,
around a lot of guys like that, right? Not like remotely, not like virtually, right?
um, well, I'm around a lot of professional soccer players because my
Oh,
girlfriend's a professional soccer player.
oh, that's great. I think
Uh,
that's a nice environment to surround yourself with, right?
it's nice, and it wasn't like that always. I will say this: whenever I decided to start making changes, it was purely for myself.
Mm,
At first, I was like, man, I don't even want to share this because I want this to be 100% genuinely for yourself.
mhm, mhm,
I don't want to get other people involved. Like, it shouldn't matter if other people know. But then I did see that people were more curious.
mhm,
So I just started kind of sharing just to see where it would
mhm,
go.
mhm,
But I will say that it is lonely
mhm,
because most of the time we spend alone, whether it's working or working out or
mhm,
whatever decisions you have to make your own decisions. And a lot of the time we like to ask people for their opinion because
mhm,
it makes us feel good, right?
mhm. Yeah, some
And then
sort of
whenever
confirmation, right? For them to
exactly,
confirm that we are right, right?
because it's scary. It's not easy to just follow your gut because if you're like me who has a lot of ambitious thoughts, if I share those things to certain people,
Mhm,
they'll either be like, "Oh yeah, that's great, like cool," or they'll be like, "Man, that's kind of crazy. That's
mhm,
risky," you know. So sometimes you just have to be okay with being alone and making lonely
mhm,
decisions. I'm
mhm,
not saying like you have to isolate yourself, but it's not. I don't see it as a bad thing. I feel
mhm,
like a lot of people uh, don't gravitate towards following their own gut sometimes,
mhm,
but it eats them up alive because every day you are with yourself. So
mhm.
you have to treat yourself that way and you have to make your decisions that way.
Yeah, like you're the most important and the most responsible person at the end of the day for yourself, right? Nobody else. So not to get a bit too philosophical, but I've always wanted to ask somebody who would be on a similar path where the strength comes from for you personally, or rather, should I ask, where did it come from in the beginning when you only started to get into this path of running, which was yet to give you obviously a lot of accolades, but also I would imagine just a lot of pain, right? And we will talk about that later a little bit. So in the beginning, what was the source of strength to just physically and most importantly mentally push yourself? Did you think about it? What was the driving, engine?
I don't think about it much,
Yeah.
but I think the strength comes from accepting the weakness.
Hmm.
Because once you accept the truth and your weaknesses and your insecurities and the things that haunt you, once you fully accept them and are accountable for them, that's very powerful because now you can move forward.
Hmm.
But if you, for example, if you're very insecure or whatever, let's say you start working out or making money just to get acceptance, like although you are getting the results, I know a lot of weak people that are quote unquote strong or
Rich.
successful.
Mm.
So I think strength comes from weakness and
Hmm.
accepting your weaknesses and being accountable for them.
Do you often face with misunderstanding? Do you often have to see people completely judging you and not getting what you're doing?
I also get strength from that. I think being alone and that being alone is tough sometimes, and you find out a lot about yourself. So once you find out about yourself, people will judge you, or people will call you crazy, or they'll put you under a certain category, maybe to make themselves feel bad or to try to put you down. But I find strength in just being myself and just saying like, "Fuck you!" Like I don't care. I don't care what you think. I deal with my own.
What is it, do you think, that some people are able to take the judgment and criticism and negativity and transform it into their strength, and others completely are broken beneath the weight of all those things? So what do you think, what makes those people those outliers? Is it something innate? Is it something they're born with? Have you thought about it?
I feel like everybody's a little bit different. You know, some people are just, they're born into, you know, maybe they had really good parents who taught them like certain disciplines and stuff like that. And there's people who had nothing, absolutely nothing. And maybe that adversity taught them lessons that they wouldn't have learned otherwise. I think it varies by case, but I believe that all the outliers had to work and do things that the majority of people don't do it. And that's what makes them an outlier.
And eventually it does pay off. So, right. And then, so when you started running, the distance was rather short. And then how did you go about increasing the distance or increasing the pace? Did you put a bit of a strategy into your running? How did you structure it first?
I did not structure it at all. Yeah. One thing that, like I said, when I started this journey, I was in a place where I wanted a lot of acceptance. I would constantly call people, text people, because I felt alone. And like I said, being alone is a very scary feeling. So whenever you're lost, you just kind of want to make yourself feel comfort. So you're looking for comfort in different ways, whether a lot of people they eat a lot, or a lot of people just want a lot of good opinions and feel like people love them for who they are and stuff like that. So whenever I started running, I wanted to do it purely for myself. And to this day, like I always run by myself. It's very, very rare that I know I could probably benefit from having a running community and running with other people. I know there's tons of running groups and stuff like that, but that's just something that I don't run for. I will always try to push myself to be better. So I want to be faster. I want to run longer. Like that's all great. But the core value of running for me is just
alone time.
Yeah, alone time. I don't want to be bothered.
Yeah, I understand that. I feel that. Sometimes me thinking about the possibility of running with somebody, it feels like all of a sudden there's just another person in my realm of suffering. And also probably if you ever think about running with somebody who's perhaps not quite on your level, maybe potentially, then there is less suffering. And I would also imagine for you currently on your level, if it doesn't suck, you don't do it, right? So there must be the element of suffering, right? Because it feels like the run is wasted if it didn't suck enough, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. So, but then you did... Then I would imagine there were those thoughts piling when you wanted to do the half marathon and then the marathon later, right? So what was the first big event of running for you?
Well, I believe about a month after I started running, and like I started building. So I ran 5 or 6 miles for the first, and then the next time was around the same, and I was like, okay, this is getting better, so I'm going to run more frequently. And then slowly but surely, I started adding more mileage. But there was no certain like running program or anything like that. My mindset was literally like, okay, I'm kind of beat up today. I don't want to do it. Like I'm just going to push myself today.
And was it today, on a daily basis initially when you just started?
No. I would run like every other day or every other third
when
day.
When you felt like running.
Right. Okay. Just because like I went, and I don't recommend people to do this because I don't want anybody getting injured. But I started moving pretty fast. But since my legs and my body wasn't conditioned to it, I was like extremely sore where like I could barely move for like a couple of days, even after like a 5-mile run. I just wasn't used to it. I picked it up out of nowhere and I just forced my body into it. But I ran my first marathon. I think it was like a month after I started running. I was like, all right, I want to do this distance and I'm going to go until I get the distance done. And it wasn't fast, but it was great.
I would imagine to start with 6 miles. Like, let me see how many 6 miles, what it is in kilometers. We've got
like 10K.
Like 10 kilometers, right? That's not bad to start with, wouldn't you say? Well, that's not bad for somebody who is relatively fit, you said, right? For a person. And had you run before? Did you have any experience running prior to discovering Goggins on YouTube?
I had never done just like a regular run, but I grew up playing.
To start with 10K, that's crazy, honestly. That's pretty nice.
I was very emotional that night, clearly, because I was like, man, fuck this. I need to get out there and do it. And like I said, it was not easy. It was not easy at all. But that's kind of the mindset that ever since that first run, I've been trying to have that same mindset for every run or for any task that I do is like, if it's not really pushing me, it's not like I got to go out there and kill myself every day. You can't do that. But maybe that day I'm really, really tired, or maybe that day I really don't want to run. So just getting out there itself is going to be really hard. Now, if you catch me on a good day where I'm motivated and it's sunny and the weather's perfect, it's like, all right, my heart today is going to be go really fast or go really far or whatever. But it has to be challenging.
Is the weather in your place much different at times? Like, do you have like different seasons? Does it get really crazy sometimes?
Most of the year it's hot and humid. But when it gets cold, it gets pretty cold.
Yeah. Like snowy?
No, it doesn't snow here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, you would probably wish it snowed, didn't you? You would probably want to get some snowy run in.
Yeah. Well, it snowed like a year ago. We had a few snow days. Well, it was like a freeze.
Yeah.
So like pipes were bursting and here in Houston, we don't have the infrastructure for the weather, man. It's not good. So like, compared to other places, it's a joke. Like it's not even cold, but for Houston, it's cold.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about Houston, right? It's one of those places that I think it gets good ring because of all these podcasts that are starting right now in Houston, in Texas generally, right? And Rogan has moved recently. So do you guys have a lot of like noise recently because of some celebrities moving in? Do you notice anything like that?
Well, Houston's growing as well, but Austin's the one. I think it was the fastest growing city a couple of years ago.
Really?
I think during like the pandemic, a lot of the people are moving down to Austin because it was more like
acceptable,
diverse.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So a lot of California people came down to Texas.
Each time Rogan mentions how nice it is, how it feels good, he kind of mentions it silently because he doesn't want to bring a lot of attention from the people, so that the place doesn't become overpopulated and overcrowded. Good. So you know what I always like to think about when I look at somebody like you or those guys? I think there is always this little, or maybe not even a little, but this element of self-destruction. Are you aware of that element of a bit of a negative, facet and aspect of yours? Do you tap into that self-destruction usually when you go for a particularly hard run? Do you enjoy that element of self-destruction, and is it there for you?
The suffering you're talking about?
Sort of, yeah, because I feels like you've got to be almost a little bit crazy, but I don't mean that in a negative. I feel for somebody like you, being called crazy is rather a compliment, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, are you aware of that aspect of yours? Yeah.
It's something that I think people take the wrong way. I'm looking for a suffering or a self-destruction where like it's going to get the best out of me. It's not like I'm going to go out there and jump in front of a car or do something stupid while I run. It's not like I purposely want to hurt myself, but I don't mind going through the pain, and I don't mind having banged up legs and being extremely tired and being exhausted from going so hard. That because I mean, you hear it, you see it on Instagram all the time and all these motivational videos, but it is true that I believe that if you go to war with yourself, you'll find some internal peace, because we're meant to work, and that's what work does to you. It brings that sense of satisfaction. And usually when you're kind of sitting around not doing much, or at least it happens to me, I don't feel good about myself. So if I go out there and I give it all, and I have to, like, if it's a self-destruction on my body, it is what it is. I feel good about myself.
Why do you think do you think everybody's got that voice and some people just willingly suppress it and shut it down? Or do you think it's something that some people just don't have? What would you say? Do you think it's majority of people who just willingly don't listen to that voice? Or do you think mostly just don't have it?
I think, well, I know anybody's capable of doing it, but I think most people have the voice and it's just too hard to listen to. That's what I believe. I believe a lot of people, most people have that voice of, you could be doing more, and it bothers them, but they try to turn off that voice. I know there's people out there that were just kind of born not, I guess, as ambitious or just happier, and that's great. But I believe a lot of people are lying to themselves or trying to, but that's really impossible, because that's a voice that will never leave your head unless you attack it.
What was the moment when you've come perilously close to realizing that it's doing harm rather than some advantage to you? Have you had those moments when you almost fell? You know what I mean? Like when you've come to when there was a little bit of an antivirus in your mind going off, all alarms just screaming at you that you're about to die or anything like that. Do you have any moments like that when, because of this passion of yours, you've almost got too close to being distracted?
Well, of course, I think it's an instinct that has, it's a double-sided coin. So I have this instinct that it wants to drain the rag. It wants to give it everything it's got, which is good for tapping into your potential and to try to achieve the things you want to achieve. But on the other side, there's times where you have to stop for a second and focus on the present moment, because you can't get that back. And I feel like a lot of people, especially with, I live in a big city where there's a lot of traffic, everybody's honking, everybody's, on the phone. Everybody has a plan and a schedule, and you kind of lose yourself in your day-to-day life. So I believe that going hard and going towards your goals and always pushing yourself is great, but you have to be proud of yourself. You can't beat yourself up. And just like you could be your worst enemy, like you got to be your hero as well. And I think that's one of the things that's the hardest to do, is balance those things out, because sometimes you gotta, let's say I'm on the couch and I really don't want to go for a run. I can call myself all sorts of ugly names and be like, man, you're being a bitch, or man, you're being like, you got to get out of there. Or you could be like, man, you've done this a million times. Like, this is just, it's another walk. It's a walk in the park. You can look at it. It's just a different perspective, and finding that balance of it becoming toxic and taking over your life is where you have to draw that line.
And do you feel like sometimes this labeling becomes really out of hands, and people go way too hard because there are so many loud voices out there who sort of almost promote and calling yourself a pussy or a bitch or something like that, right? And then this just gets into your head and you think, well, shit, am I? Maybe I am, right? So it doesn't take you into good direction, takes you down this negative hill. That's interesting. So yeah. Do you think there must be something done particularly to help people focus more onto positive voice rather than negative? Is there any, like, I don't know, freaking meditation or anything like that? Have you thought about that?
Well, I believe that if you create let's say if you write, because we have a lot of thoughts going on, right? So we lose train of thought. So if you have an idea or if you have a goal, you write it down, whatever it is, whether it's big or small. And then if you can create a plan, it doesn't have to be, let's say, if I want to say, okay, this next week, I'm not going to eat more than 2,000 calories a day. You start creating a plan, and then you can start attacking it. But you have to be nice to yourself, but you can't lie to yourself either. So, like you were saying, I can call myself a pussy or a bitch, and maybe that will get me out of bed, and maybe that will get me to get the task done. So the task will be done, but I still feel bad about myself. So what's the whole point? You see what I'm saying?
At what price, right?
Exactly. So sometimes it's good to have to call yourself those names, but if you're not content and if it's not making sense, it's like, all right, man, let's say I have all the money, I have the best body, I have this and that, but I'm not grounded, and I lose myself in the process, then what's the point? So sometimes you just have to slow down and focus on what's important and why you're doing that.
Do you think you have managed to perfectly, or at least slightly, master the ability to concentrate on the way other than on the destination? I think it's particularly relevant for running because there's a lot of connection with real life and philosophy, because all you can do in running is just the next right step. That's one of the biggest, most beautiful lessons I got from running. You keep in mind the final mile or kilometer, you keep thinking about that and you keep it in mind during, but then next right step, left right, that's what you do. So do you think running has helped you to be more focused on the journey rather than destination in life?
100%.
Yeah.
Because every single day that I run, no matter what's going on out there, you cannot skip a step at all. So you can go fast, you can go slow. That does not matter. You can't jump a step. So it forces you to be extremely present. So if you can start off your day with a run, man, your life is just gonna exponentially improve because you become so present. And obviously there's a lot of benefits to doing the exercise, but it's something that you just can't. It's true work. Like there's just
it's easily accessible, fantastically easily accessible, right? But at the same time, it's really big because what else can be as natural and accessible to you as running? And yet so many people are just deadly afraid of it. Have you had to hear a lot of times how people just say, oh, it's not for me? I bet you have heard it quite a couple of times, right? How people, what's your reaction to that? What do you say to a person who says running's not for me? Yeah,
I mean,
you don't care.
If they say running's not for me, like I'm not going to force you for it to be for you. But if you say, I mean, I don't really care what people say that much, but if you come at me and say, oh, what about like your body? I'm like, we're designed as humans. We're bipedal animals. So the only advantage we have with other animals is we're endurance animals. We sweat. We have 2 legs that we can run or walk on, most people. So I think it's just silly when people say it. And to be fair, most likely it's an excuse. But
yeah, most likely.
It's not for everybody.
And have you learned how not to judge? You know why I'm asking about this? It's a bit of a trap question for me, I think, learn not to judge. But I feel like sometimes when you put in so much and your effort is so great, and then you just run into this lazy ass who says running's not for me, you can't but judge a little bit. So have you become a bit easier on people for saying anything like that? Have you learned how not to judge with time? Or has it maybe always been easy for you not to judge?
Whenever I judge, I always try to judge myself for judging, if that makes sense. So if I catch myself judging somebody, I'm like, man, I really don't know what they're
like
going through.
you're trying to ask what it says about you, right?
Exactly. Like if I'm judging, I gotta fix myself on the spot. So I've gotten good at doing that. If I find myself judging, I'm like, man, the only reason you're judging is because there's something that you're not dealing with. Because everybody's dealing with something, right? And I don't know what you're dealing with, and I don't know your past. So who am I to judge you? So anytime I'm judging myself or judging somebody, it speaks volumes of myself.
Some sort of something that gets triggered in you, some kind of an insecurity perhaps of yours, right? That just responds to this person. Yeah, that's interesting. What was your first, I might have asked that before, I might be returning to that. So what was your first running event? Did you say it was like a half marathon or something?
It was, you talking about like a race?
Yeah, the official one, yeah.
My first race was a 50-mile race.
Okay, and how long was it after that famous night when you discovered Goggins?
It was like half a year after.
Okay.
About half a year
that's
after.
impressive. That's quite impressive.
Thank you. I mean, I think I just went all in and I didn't look back. And then I found a lot of power in not really listening to like the running experts.
Who do not advise this and that, right? Who say it's rather unhealthy.
Right. So I think that's, it's dumb in a way. It's stubborn, but it works for me, and I think it's worked for a lot of people. And if you see a lot of the like the top athletes, top runners, whether it's an ultra or like a marathon, they say like don't overthink it. Like we get really caught in like all the science behind it, but at the same time, there's a lot of science that we don't know about, and there's no point of overthinking.
On a scale from 0 to 10, how hard was that first one?
Dude, I trained really hard.
Yeah.
I was running 100-mile weeks for a 50-mile race, and I had no idea. I was like, man, this race is going to be the hardest thing ever. Because previous to that, the longest I had run was a marathon. Basically, I was running 2 marathons.
Right.
So I was like prepared to go to war. So I thought it was going to be way, 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 way worse than what it actually was, just because I went in with that mindset.
Oh, really? So that sort of negatively contributed, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was going to be a lot worse, and I got done. And don't get me wrong, it was tough, but I thought it was going to be compared to a marathon, like, because that was my first marathon that I had run was so hard.
Yeah,
I walked like half of it because my legs were so banged up. So I was like, man, doing double that has to be extremely hard, and it was hard. It was very hard, but it was hard to fathom.
How did you go about preparation? You said you were preparing prior to that somehow. How did you structure your preparation? Was it just the total mileage, weekly?
Weekly mileage.
Yeah, weekly mileage. And did you slowly increase it?
Yeah. So I found I've never jumped from like 50 miles a week to like 100 miles a week, but I try to add 5 or 10 miles per week, which is still pretty aggressive for most people, but that's just what I do. So yeah.
And when you say you increase it by week, do you mean like increasing every day a little bit, or every next day a little bit, or was it just one final like control run that you maxed out? How was it?
No, I meant increase by week. So like if I ran a 50-mile week, the next week I would run for 55, go for 55 or 60 or whatever I decide to do. And then I break it down. I don't schedule it like, I try to do like a mock schedule where it's, all right, Monday I got to run 10 and the next 10 or whatever. But I just have to get done that weekly mileage. So if one day I'm feeling it and I want to add more miles, I'll add more miles. Right. And then if one day I'm busy and I want to save more miles for the next day, I'll do that.
Yeah. Did you have those moments in that period when all the prior days you were feeling so, and then, there is this final day, the control one, where you just have to leave your body on there? And did you have those days like that when all the week you were kind of doing the average mileage, right? And then on the last final day, on the control day, you just had to maximize it as much as you could. There were days like that, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of procrastination, and even there's days where like usually I like to knock out most of my miles early in the week. That way, on the weekend I can it's a little bit easier and I can recover for the next week. So there'll be times where I have like, if I'm running 80 miles, 80 miles is like 11 and a half miles per day. So I'll do enough miles in the week. So on Sunday I have like a 7-miler. So I'm like, oh man, 7 miles is going to be easy because I already front loaded all these other miles. And then that Sunday comes and that 7 mile is hard. So every day comes with a different challenge. But yeah, sometimes going back to that first race I did, I like to think of things being a lot harder. That way I'm always expecting it to be worse, if that makes sense, during the run. And that actually makes it easier. Because sometimes I'm like, man, it's going to be a walk in the park. I kind of mess with my mind. Because then the opposite can happen where I'm like, oh man, it's going to be easy, just easy 7-miler. So I'm like, oh, it's going to be quick. And then I start getting impatient and I'm like, oh, I want to get out of here. So I'm not mentally prepared for that run.
What is the biggest challenge generally when you look at you running? What is the biggest challenge ever in the context of you running? What would you pick that's the one thing that maybe you still haven't gotten over quite?
Most days I don't want to do it. I don't really, it's not fun. It's not fun. Like it's not a hobby of mine. I wouldn't call it a hobby. It's just something I have to do. So I see it like almost like a task. And it's a task that obviously I choose to do, right? But most days, and that's why it's so empowering, because it's something that I'm not really looking forward to.
Quite the opposite, perhaps, right? Do you negatively expect something? Like the next day, you'd probably think, "Oh shit, tomorrow's gonna suck," right?
That's most days, man. And people like, I guess, once you do certain races or once you run certain distances or whatever, people think, "Oh, this is like so easy for you." Like, no, it's not.
No. Yeah.
It's a daily battle. And that's why it's so. That's why I need it in my life, because it's never easy.
What would happen to you? Have you thought about what would happen to you if, for some reason, you have to stop?
I'll find something else to do.
Something else. So it's about just like challenging yourself constantly, right?
I think if I lost my legs, let's say, I would find a way to still stay in shape. So lifting or I'll do some sort of cardio where I don't have to use my legs. But then I would try to either go back to school and get a degree, or I would really try to become a really, really good businessman.
Which direction do you think you would move as an entrepreneur, businessman? Have you thought about it? Must be something perhaps sport related.
As an entrepreneur, you said?
Yeah.
I really want to grow the brand of No Tomorrow, and I've been thinking I have so many thoughts on how I want to do it, but I started with shorts, and then now
have you already kicked that off? Has it been started? The shirts? Yeah, it's been.
Yeah. And now I want to make like some really cool cotton T-shirts that you can kind of wear to the gym, or you can wear them running, or you can wear them casually. So that's what I want to do next. And then I want to start my podcast as well with my girlfriend.
Yeah. Oh, that's going to be amazing. Her being a professional sports person, right? Yeah, that would be fantastic. A lot of experience to share. Yeah, why haven't you started already? Do you feel, because myself, I've kicked that channel off kind of a couple of weeks ago, I was thinking about, some people say we don't really need another lame ass talking on the podcast to a microphone. So there is like an argument for that. But then I think, if everybody of those guys had thought like that, nothing would have been started, nothing would have been done. So why not? If you're enjoying it, why not? Yeah, you got to do it for sure. That would be amazing. I would fucking follow immediately for sure.
Thanks, man.
Are you listening to this Cam Hanes new podcast? You probably, yeah. What is it? Cam Hanes, what is it? Collective. It's not podcast, right? It's called Collective.
Yeah. I've listened to a few episodes in that. I listened. He has some good guests.
Yeah.
But I listened to that first one with Mike Chandler.
Right.
That was a good one. And then he just dropped one with Cowboy Cerrone. So I like the UFC.
Yeah.
I respect a lot how those fighters live, because it's very it's purpose driven.
A lot of people don't understand that it's how you make living by literally putting your body in danger. It's one of those few people that still preserve this primal way of lifestyle from back in the days, how everybody had to do it. Now and you see, sometimes you think, like I was coming back home the other day and I was thinking about this brain. I was just messing with my thoughts. I was thinking about how brain produces dreams and how you can affect it with multiple, like whatever, how amazing the brain is as an organ. And then I think, isn't it a fucking shame that some people just put their body in octagon at risk and then they got this brain injuries and stuff. And then I thought it's even crazier because it's even riskier, right? Because you've got this supercomputer. You would think that you got to preserve it and cherish it as much as you could just, blow the dust off this thing, to be really careful with that. And there are those wild guys just don't care. Look at that. That's great. And we're so happy that we're so lucky that we've got access to those. Like,
right.
That's interesting.
They're out there, man. They're out there. There's still people that, we've evolved and we've become smarter and everything's becoming faster. Like we appreciate engineers, doctors, people, like the fact that I can talk to you. You're across the world. You're in
Ukraine.
Where are you? Ukraine?
Yeah. Yep.
Ukraine. Yeah. So, it's crazy that like we can even connect, but there's people who still live that, like you said, that primal way of living, which is fighting, especially for men.
Yeah, so the Cowboy episode was good, you said. I just started listening with this, what is his, Chris Willix, the guy behind Modern Wisdom or something. Just the first episode of mine.
Williamson?
Yeah. And Cam is good as a host of a podcast. He should have started it earlier. Should have definitely started it earlier. And he did, I think, if you remember, he did have something like Keep Hammering podcast or something like that.
Oh, really?
I think he did. Yeah, you can find it somewhere on the vaults of Spotify and on YouTube that goes back to like 10 years ago or something. Yeah. So it's for a reason that we started talking about Cameron Hanes. It was one of the, when before setting this podcast up, I thought, man, I got to get into that story, how you met him, right? I'm really curious to get in that. How did that happen? Tell me, put me through it.
It was funny, man, because I had been following him and then he followed me back. And then he would like, comment on some certain posts, and I was like, man, this is crazy because
he's quite, he responds a lot, doesn't he? Right?
Yeah. He's grown a lot too, and he's a busy man.
I imagine.
He was working a job. He was running. He was lifting. He was hunting. He has a family. Like he was a busy dude. But anyway, so he had sent me out a pair of shoes, and I was like, man, this is cool. I was like, this is awesome. Like,
what of those Under Armour that he's promoting, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
So anyway, we would go back and forth on the DM sometimes.
Right.
We were just very quick. And then one time I told him that I was going to Oregon, and that if he was down to train. And he said, let's do it.
Oh,
so that whenever I went...
So that trip wasn't purposely to meet him, as far as I understand, right?
No. I was going to Oregon.
Yeah.
Already.
Okay. That's nice. So you just combined the opportunity, right?
Yeah, because, my sister lives there right now. So, but she lives in Portland,
Yeah.
which is like
Well,
2
that
hours
doesn't
away.
give me a lot of information. I'm terrible at. I mean, I don't know shit about
It's
my
like,
own vicinity. You know, I go 10 kilometers away from my house, I'm lost. So yeah, that must be close, isn't it?
it's like a 2 hour drive, right?
Oh, okay, yeah,
So I originally was going to go to Portland,
yeah,
but then that got canceled. But I was like, man, I'm still going to go, so I can go train with him. So I scheduled my flight. He lives like I said, 2 hours out in Eugene. So I went out, and then I was like, "Hey, man, I'm in
Did you come
town.
to
What's
his
up?"
house or any? Did you
No, no,
arrange?
no,
No.
no,
I mean, no,
no.
but you met somewhere, right? Somewhere in between, in the
Yeah,
middle.
at the mountain where he runs.
Oh, that one. What is it called? That's a famous name. I remember keep calling it.
Pisca.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, so that's where you met, right? Man,
Yeah.
were you
So
nervous?
he just texted me because he was actually there's a race on that mountain that weekend I was there. I had no idea. There's a 50K
Oh,
that mountain.
yeah. Was he participating?
Yeah, so he told me, he's like, "Hey, I'm running the 50K, whatever," and I was like, "Oh man, I might just do it too." But then he said that he couldn't do it anymore. But he's like, "Let's run."
Yeah.
I forgot. It was like a Saturday, I think, Saturday or Sunday. He's like, "Let's just meet there and we'll run it."
See.
So
Nice.
went out there and ran it. So it was like a quick trip. It was fun.
Yeah. What's he like
He's a
in
good guy.
person? Just as nice as he is on those podcasts, right?
Yeah, he's a good guy, man. He's nice, always smiling. We're just talking about different stories and stuff like that. And we connected through Instagram. So I've met a few people for the first time because we connected through Instagram, which is cool because we don't technically know each other until we meet in person. But it feels like we do know each other, and you just share different stories about ultras and past life. It was cool. He's a genuine dude.
Oh yeah, that's amazing. What about the town? I've always, because watching those videos, I think it would be fair to admit that recently Cam has been, even as crazy as it sounds, he's been even busier than he was before because of with this podcast, and I feel like he's still gaining a lot of popularity. It's probably going up. Although I remember from my phase when I was super actively following him, because I was at one point of my life, you know how it is on Instagram. Sometimes some people, I mean, some of those people's stories are usually first, and then somehow they just, maybe it's the shadow banning, but some people just go a little bit, they move away. So I've sort of lost, my kind of following with him. And then I've recently opened his profile. I see that the guy is really grinding even more probably than he was before. So what about his town? Is it like a small one, like a more, it's not a big city, is it?
No, it's not. It's pretty over there, man. It's in the Pacific Northwest. So, a lot of trees, some beautiful mountains, but it's not, it's a pretty small city. It's still a city, but it's pretty small.
Feels like having nature like that is the best, honestly. I think it's, if you live in the mountains, it's the God tells you to run, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it wasn't a bad view, man. Like, being in nature and being connected is beautiful. Even though
do you think it wears off a little bit? Because I've always wondered if people who live in those regions, because here in my country we've got stunning mountains, and I've always wondered, and I've asked the locals from those regions, like if it gets old, do you think people become used to those views? Does it get a little bit boring, lame to them, you think?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think so, but I guarantee you, once they leave for a little bit and they come back, they're like, "Oh man,
for sure."
Because you once you lose something or once you're away from it, that's when you realize how privileged you are.
Did you feel big contrast from running in a city and running in a town like Cam's? Did you feel like you wish you could live in a place like that?
Yeah, it's definitely nice to like not have to. It's literally just you and nature, which is, I don't get that, but I also realized how out of shape I am compared to a lot of the people
because
over there.
of these heels that you've got that takes a different
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
different grind, man. It's a different
Oh,
grind.
interesting.
So yeah, where I live, it's flat. There's not a
Right.
single hill in the
Yeah.
city.
Yeah. Does it get a bit dangerous running in the city sometimes?
Uh, yeah. I mean, it's a big city, man. Shit happens out here.
Hmm. Do you run at
But
night at times?
mhm.
Yeah. So you don't care, right? What about that challenge that Goggins is doing 4x4? Have you ever done it?
I did it 2021,
Yeah. Okay. How did
but
that feel?
well, I did it differently though. So I ran 12 miles instead of 4.
Mm.
So it was 12 miles every
Each 4 hours?
4 hours for
Wow.
48 hours.
That's
So I was running all
crazy.
fucking weekend, dude. It
Man.
was
That
that
must
was
have been
hectic.
the longest. You know what? I did shit like that. And you say, but you did it differently. I also did it differently, but you did it in the high direction. I went in the pussy direction. And not literally, I mean, right? I did 4 kilometers each 4 hours. I'm embarrassed to
That's
even
all right,
admit it,
man.
shit like that. And I gotta admit, that was the longest weekend of my life. Yeah, it was the
Well,
longest.
what gets you is the sleep, man.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
like I know a lot of people that have done it's for it's 48 miles in 48 hours basically.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I know a lot of people that have done 48 or whatever 100 miles in less than 48 hours. But it's a sleep that's the
Hmm.
tough
Hmm.
part
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, you can't
because you
sleep
don't get a
longer
full
than
sleep.
like what you slept, 3 and something hours, right?
Well, I had like an hour break in between legs.
Oh, just an hour break in between? Yeah, so how long
Uh,
did those you said 12 miles, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
it was
right.
tough.
That's right. I'm saying three. I had 3 and something hours because my runs would take like 15 minutes or something. So it's easy
Yeah.
compared to what you did. You got 1 hour maximum of sleeping.
Yeah, in
Wow,
between
that's
legs.
crazy.
It was
You
a
didn't
tough
even
weekend,
sleep.
man.
You
But
probably did. You hallucinate at one point or something?
well, I had a friend come out and pace me. I think it was the first night, so I was like 80 miles in or something like that total. And then I was messaging him like a week after, and I was like, man, I haven't seen you in like a couple months.
Hmm.
I was like,
Hmm.
you got to come out and run with me sometime, or like, got to catch up soon. He's like, I ran with you last weekend, so I
Wow.
forgot. I completely forgot.
Wow.
And then when he said it, I remembered. But before that, I was like,
Wow. It feels like something so traumatic that your brain just decides to sort of erase certain moments, right? Like it happens sometimes with people. Like when something like that happens, big, it doesn't always have to be like negative, but a big experience like that when your brain just removes some parts, for your own sake, for your own good.
yeah.
Interesting. Do you remember that story? You must have heard it, I'm sure, of who's that Courtney Walter? I think she's
Hmm.
also somewhere from up there where Cam lives. How she
Hmm.
was hallucinating on her races. Remember that
Yeah.
story? Yeah,
She's nuts, man.
yeah,
She's in a good way. Like
yeah, for sure.
she's amazing.
Wow. What was she seeing on the race? Was it some kind of jaguars that she talked to or something?
Yeah, she was seeing some different stuff. I heard it on Joe Rogan. She it was at the Moab 240. So she said she saw like different animals like playing a
That's
guitar, and then
crazy.
like
Wow.
a like a man standing waving at her. And
Uh-huh.
I mean, I would have freaked the fuck out if I
Oh
was a kid.
man.
But like at night in the middle of nowhere, seeing a guy just waving at you, I would freak out.
You know what? Once what happened? That's a crazy. I mean, that's nothing compared to what she saw. I remember like 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm running in this little forest next to me, and there's a dude. And that sounds stupid, but that's exactly what happened. There's this guy who supposedly looked kind of a bit younger than me, and he's got a stick like a branch from a tree. And you know what the guy was doing? He was practicing. He probably thought he was fucking Jon Snow or something. He's just waving at basically having a sword fight with a tree.
Dude,
When I saw
that
that, uh,
that happened to me in
really,
actual life.
wow,
And dude, I wish I had my sister here.
yeah,
So that weekend when I did the 12 by 4 by 48,
uh,
it was my last leg. So
mm,
I was trashed, man. I
yeah,
was like, I was a zombie, but I was in the middle of the city. So it was like, I was running in a park and there's like people riding their bikes and running around and shit. but I'm a zombie. Like I don't, I'm just moving. But I had my sister in the bike because I was like, hey, I need help because like I'm losing my shit. So we go out and we're running, or I'm running, and I see this cholo looking guy. He was wearing like a big black t-shirt. Like, anyway, I see him walking like towards me because I was on like a bike trail, and he was getting closer. So I was looking at him, and he was like, "Fuck you, motherfucker!"
Really?
Like,
wow.
And then he fakes like he's gonna pull out a gun, and he does this with his fingers.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
So I freaked the fuck. I thought like I was like, man, I'm like,
and like, why would he freaking do shit like that?
It was some crackhead, or I don't know, but
probably.
I know I wasn't hallucinating because my sister was there.
Right. You think if she wasn't there, you could have thought that it was.
I could have thought it was fake.
Yeah, wow.
But then I was like, man, fuck it. Like I was pissed because I was tired, and I had like 3 miles to go, and then it's like a loop that on the park. So I went around, and it got dark, and there was some trees over there. So all I hear is like, I thought an animal was coming out of the bushes, but it was the guy with the stick.
Damn,
like
same one,
same shit, same guy. Oh. Like you said, he had the stick like a branch, and he was waving, hitting the bushes.
Bro, those guys are fighting. You know, they're probably thinking of them like knights or something, practicing.
Yeah.
Shit.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that actually happened, man.
Do you carry any, weaponry at you, or any measures of protection, anything like that?
No, but that's gonna change soon.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what I've been thinking about? I've been, when I was actively running, I always thought, and I never bought it, you can have this sort of a bracelet made of a cord. I think it's some sort of military style, but on both ends of that, it's like a little knife, and it just clicks, and you wear it like a bracelet or something. It doesn't look like it looks like a bracelet or something, but who knows? You need shit like that. You ain't gonna, what do you think? Some people, have you ever, well, you probably don't have a lot of issues with dogs, because in cities, I think it's not an issue, right? Like those stray dogs.
No. There's a lot of dogs, but usually they're with an owner on the leash. But yeah, there's some crazy dogs. So at night, I do run with a knife.
Oh yeah,
with a pocket knife. So I'll put it in my pocket, in my waistband,
right?
Or sometimes I carry it on my hand. I've never had to use it, but yeah, man, you gotta be careful out there.
Yeah, some people keep those like devices that's supposed to scare the dogs away. I don't think that even works. Yeah, here dogs can be. I remember when I was doing 4x4, that thing. Yeah, I got in trouble with a bunch of street dogs. You know, those dirty animals were following me for like good 2 kilometers out of 4. You know, there was one particular that just didn't get off my ass for a long time. I mean, I would not be surprised if the bitch is still outside my house waiting for me. You know,
those crazy. Dogs don't fuck around, man.
Yeah. Interesting. So yeah, and then have you ever thought about meeting David though? How that would be?
I'm sure maybe at a race I'll meet him one day, or who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know if I like. He seems like a really. I mean,
not the laziest person, right, in the world.
No, I'm not the laziest. Yeah, maybe one day we'll meet. Not sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Have you purchased those books? Have you read his books?
Yeah, both of them.
Both of them. Really what do you think about the second? How's the second?
Man, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Really? Huh. The same standard, the same bar, right? Because the first one set a pretty high bar. So you're saying that the second is just as that?
Just as good, if not better, man. It's
interesting.
It's really good. Have you read it?
I've read the first one. I've read Can't Hurt Me. I haven't gotten my hands to the second one. I feel like from what I've heard from his latest Rogan appearance, the second one might be a little bit more, like a little bit, I don't know, a bit more family family oriented, anything like that. But because some of his like family stories include, right, some his background family stories. Was there anything like that?
Yeah. In the audiobook, he interviews his mom.
That's right. Oh, so you listen to it?
So you listen to his mom, just for a section of it, but it's good, man. It's really good. I recommend it. If you can get the audio version, it's even better.
No, yeah. Audio must be like a kind of that. So he also comments it like the first one, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's some
Same
comments.
style. Same
Yeah.
style.
Interesting. What is your next big challenge in terms of running?
Right now I'm trying to get healthy again, so I want to get back to the 100-mile weeks. I had COVID this past week, man.
Really?
So
How was it?
it was
Bad?
not fun. I think did I tell you? No, I didn't tell you.
No.
I'm doing another podcast tomorrow, so I was telling the other guy, the other host. But yeah, I had COVID this past week, man. So
Really?
fucking sucked. But
Lost the smell, the whole bunch.
Man, I was just tired for no reason.
Yeah.
Like I've been having back issues the past year that I've been dealing with, but I've been waking up every single day just with like really bad back pain.
Wow.
And like COVID made it way worse.
Really? Shit.
Yeah, you just like your muscles get sore for no reason. But anyway, I'm good now. But
How long did it
I don't
last?
have any races coming up. I just want to focus on being not perfect every day, but really focusing on the daily tasks. You know, I don't right now. This calendar year, I'm not signed up for anything, and I just really want to focus on the daily tasks. I don't want to have to worry about anything huge because it does take over your mind. And there's other things I want to do outside of running. I'm going to be running a lot. Don't get me wrong, but as far as races, I don't have anything planned. But next year, I want to do I want to have like a racing season where I have 4 or 5 races.
Yeah, that
this year I want to get real healthy and fit, and then next year I want to go hard with the races.
Right. Yeah.
That's the plan, man. That's the plan.
For successful races, a lot of aspects have to be in check, right? It's not like if you're mentally not quite there, that's going to be even more hellish experience than otherwise. Are you doing a lot of podcasts these days?
No, man, I haven't. I don't really feel like I have much value to give out there, you know.
Well, you get in your audience, right? I think the thing what you're doing is attracting people, right? People are gravitating towards something like that.
Yeah, I've had a few people ask me to do podcasts, but to be honest, I don't feel like I have a lot to give. But doing one today, doing one tomorrow, and then in the previous years, I think I've done 2 other ones. No, I've only done 1 other one actually. So this is my second. So we'll see. Maybe in the future I'll do more. But I haven't been really doing much that people would want to hear about.
You got to start your own one. You know,
yeah.
You got to definitely. I don't want to sound like Rogan, who's reportedly said that shit to everybody, but seriously, we need more real people out there. You know, we got some real content out there. It's going to be amazing. So make sure you announce it on the media. I will be damn sure to follow immediately. Listen, man, endlessly grateful. It's been pleasure, nothing but pleasure. Thanks for agreeing. That's been fantastic. I hope I didn't take up too much of your time. I bet you could run 100 miles probably in the time that we've been talking. So yeah, that's lovely. I will drop it.
You, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Yes, I will drop it probably in a couple of days, and I'll be sure to send you the link. So thanks again. Appreciate it a lot. It was a pleasure. Wish you greatest success with your races.
Thank you, man. You as well. I appreciate it.
Thank you. See ya. Goodbye.